What's up everybody, Kier Gomes here, and welcome back. If you're a fairly active member of the community on the internet, or if you just love playing cards and you follow people on Instagram, you probably know why today is such a special day. Today, one of my favorite playing card companies, Gemini Decks, surprised us with a release of the Superfly Dazzle playing cards. If you pay close attention to certain posts, you might notice that Tomas Pinston has actually kind of been teasing or hinting at this deck for quite some time now. A few pictures here and there on Instagram, and he just recently did a giveaway, giving away 2 of these. But the playing card fairies blessed us today, and Gemini went ahead and released some of these babies for sale. Ooh, I am so excited. As most of you know, I absolutely love Gemini Decks. Every time they come out with a deck, I make sure that I get a review in just because I love them so much and I love sharing them with you guys. Spoiler alert, this may be my favorite Superfly deck to date, and we're gonna talk all about that in today's episode. Before we get started, please do drop a like on this video and subscribe if you haven't already. And without further ado, let's roll that intro and get you guys on your way.
Let's go.
I just love this. Even the box, I love it so much. All right, here we go. So the tuck box is done in typical USPCC cardstock. It has a glossy finish on it, and you can see on the front it has the back design of the cards, sort of, with the Superfly emblem stamped at the bottom in orange. Now, if you know me, you know black and orange is really my jam. It's like my favorite color combination in the world, so I'm already feeling it. Both sides of the tuck say Superfly, and then you can see it says Dazzle kind of on the inside strip. On the bottom, you have a barcode and some copyright information about Gemini Decks. On the top, it says Superfly in orange. The back design is the back design of the cards, which, if you couldn't guess, I'm already a huge fan of. And you get a custom Superfly seal that blends in very nicely with that back design. Ooh, I'm excited. Inside the tongue flaps, you get a continuation of the print on the side, and then on the top, you get a continuation of that back design and front design. Looks really good. Let's take a look at the cards. Ooh. Hello, beautiful. All right, your back design looks like this. You can see it is a about medium-sized border, which is pretty typical for Superfly decks. And then in black and white abstract line work, you can see that there's just a bunch of lines going in either direction, completing a nice and symmetrical type, almost like woven together style, which I think for flourishes is gonna look great, but as well, just aesthetically, that's a very, very nice deck to look at. And as well, you can see it says Superfly in orange, mirrored in the middle. I love this back design so much. Definitely my favorite Superfly deck so far. And that's saying something because every single Superfly deck that I have that I own, which might be all of them, is amazing. Oh, look at that. That looks so good. Well, something that I appreciate is taking a look at the back design. You can see it is actually two-way. You've been seeing a lot of one-way back designs lately, and it is nice and refreshing to see a two-way back design. That looks great. That looks great. These cards were, of course, designed by Tomas Pinston, who designs all of the Gemini decks. He just never really ceases to amaze me. It's great. All right, so for the Jokers, you get your kind of standard Superfly etiquette. You can see it's a nice abstract print. At first glance, it might look like the Jokers are identical, but you can actually see that the orange dot and line are kind of inverted different directions. You can use this as like a really, really interesting magic effect. I'm sure that there's something you could do with it, or you could use them as duplicate Jokers, because I really doubt that a typical spectator would even notice the difference there. Genius. Your Ace of Spades is an enlarged spade pip with the back design of the cards kind of printed on the inside to make it like halfway faded out, so from back here you might not even be able to tell. But it looks really cool. It's kind of just, it doesn't have a defined outline, so it kind of just looks like the print of the Ace of Spades is like faded away or chipped at, which looks really cool. And it says Superfly in the middle. And then below that, you can also see some ad copy and copyright information about Gemini Decks. You might also notice that it does have standard indices, so we will talk about that in just a second. All right, now as far as ad cards and gaff cards, you are gonna get one Gemini ad card. It looks like this. It's kind of just like a full bleed of the back design, and then it has some Gemini information right there in the middle. Sometimes you keep these, sometimes you don't. With Gemini, I typically do keep them just because, in my opinion, a lot of their ad cards could just be hung up like in a frame as art. And who knows, I might do that one day. By the way, did you guys notice I got some mood lighting back here? I thought it might help like make the backdrop of the videos pop a little bit more. Still a lot of work to do, but I digress. Your other extra card is gonna be a duplicate King of Diamonds. I don't need to say it, but duplicates are very handy for magicians, so I really appreciate Gemini thinking about that when they decided what ad cards to put in. Now, you caught a little glimpse of the indices before, but here is what the deck looks like if you fan it for the indices. They do look almost completely standard, but you can see on the hearts and diamonds, they have been swapped out from red to orange, which really floats my boat. So let's take a look at the face cards. As you can see, this deck does feature standard USPCC indices, minus the customization of color, with the hearts and diamonds being swapped for orange. As well, the pips on the faces of each card, as seen before on many Superfly decks, you can see that one pip has been changed to fit the back design of the cards. You might also notice that the pips on each of the aces has been enlarged, which is also something that I've grown to be very fond of. Your court cards do feature a fair amount of customization as per usual on Superfly decks. Everything from the color scheme to some of their hair to the hats that they're wearing. This is another example of a time when you can take a typical USPCC design and just make it a little bit better and really try to stay consistent with the theme of the deck. Now this is an important thing because when it's done well, I do like a little bit of customization on the faces. I like standard, but things like this where you just change one pip to keep it interesting, I mean, I really do love that, and especially when it's just one on like a bigger card, like look how good that looks. I really like that. And even like the designs inside their clothes or their uniform, that looks really cool. A little detail that I like is, like you can see here on the 3 of diamonds, it not only has that one customized pip, but super tiny, I don't know if you can see that, it says Superfly in the middle. Little details like that, you know, little Easter eggs for the deck, or just little things that you notice if you take a look at your cards and really appreciate what you're seeing. It takes thought, and I really love that. Ooh. Well, I love the way this deck handles, so at this point, you've seen what it looks like. Let's switch angles and talk about how it handles. So handling-wise, this deck is fantastic, as you might expect. It's printed on crushed USPCC stock. It's relatively thin, and I think, in my opinion, for Gemini's Superfly decks, being that the intended purpose is cardistry, I really like the cardstock that they chose to use. The cards are super soft, very easy to spring, as you can see. I've been told that the way my spring sounds is very satisfying, so for those of you that like it, here you go. Man, these cards feel super good. This is what the deck looks like when you fan it. Because of that thick black outline on the border, you can see a nice like ribbon of just black ink rolling through your fan. I think that looks really cool. Just adds like an extra layer. If you fan the deck for the indices, this is what you get. It looks really nice because it almost looks standard, but you can see it has the orange and black instead of red and black. And again, I'm a huge fan of that. Today's one of the rare occasions that I actually was festive and wore colors that matched the deck of the cards, but I couldn't help myself. I just love the way this deck looks. Here's that new dribble sound. One more time. You can definitely like hear how soft the cards are, and I love when that happens. Ooh. See how the cards faro? Definitely top to bottom. And let's do a giant fan. Ooh, that looks super good. Look at that. Nice. If I had to compare the way that this deck feels to another deck, I would say any Superfly deck that you own is going to feel very similar to this one. But if you don't have any Superfly decks, these feel a lot like the first playing cards by Chris Ramsey or the Fontaine Chinatowns. They do have an air cushion finish, which is good because it means that the cards will last you a while. All right, now common question that I get asked is, could I use this deck for Magic? You know, yes, definitely, and I think this is a deck that personally, like if I was doing Magic like casually, either just, you know, like hanging out with friends or if I'm just, you know, out and about, yeah, you definitely could use this deck for Magic and you would not have any issues. And the reason for that, of course, is because you do have a semi-standard lineup of faces. They're fairly easy to recognize and fairly interpretable, so. I could spring these cards all day, for sure. But I know you don't want to see that, so let's check the snappiness. Ooh. So the cards are not extremely snappy, but they do have a nice pop. You can hear it. Listen. I like that. All right, now in terms of flourishes, obviously this deck was designed with flourishes in mind. So I think it would look really good in the hands of somebody who's super proficient in cardistry. But even somebody like me, I'm more of a sleight of hand guy, but the flourishes that I do know how to do, I think look really nice with this deck. I mean, flourishes really look good with all decks, but I think when it comes to the contrast of a deck, that really helps. One, define your packets, but it's just a lot more eye-popping, and this deck is definitely good for that. And there you go. Well guys, thank you so much for watching today's episode and my review of the Gemini Superfly Dazzle playing cards by Gemini Decks. This deck is available now, so if you hurry, you can head over to the Gemini Decks website. I will link it below and try to score some of these. Trust me, this is a deck you do not want to miss out on. I absolutely love it. I think that for me, this is probably, I would say in my top 5 Gemini decks ever made. Not just the Superfly line, but just in general. It's classy, it's elegant, but it's hip and modern. I absolutely love the contrast of black, white, and orange. And the customization on the faces is like perfect. So, as well, I should have an update soon on the Jerry's Nuggets giveaway. So if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I'll make sure that that gets linked somewhere over here at the end of this video. You can get all the news and everything you need there. Hopefully that's enough to get you guys to consider to subscribe if you haven't yet. And of course, I hope you'll drop a like on this video as it does help me out quite a bit. The holidays are coming up, so for my United States people, if you're celebrating Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. And if you're not, you can spend the whole day watching my videos. All right, guys, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. I appreciate it. With all that being said, I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their day. I know I will. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.